Hello and good morning, good day everyone. So I would like to share about 10 things that every teacher should know regarding reading comprehension, and this is intended for our class today, June 28th, on content area reading. So there are some issues regarding reading comprehension which says that you should not be misled by reading comprehension tests and that we should do low reading comprehension scores. If we do low, or if we do receive reading comprehension scores which are quite low, then this would mean that students struggle with reading comprehension. And because reading is a collection of linguistic and cognitive skills that are embedded in hierarchical and low comprehension scores, this do not necessarily mean that there is a need for more comprehension instruction. So I bet you would agree with these two statements, right? The other one is a question and the other one is a statement in a statement form. So is it really a reading comprehension problem or is it a decoding problem? You might be wondering which is which, reading comprehension or decoding problem. Based on your experience among your students with the several years that you have been teaching, what do you think is the cause of low reading comprehension scores? Let's take a look at the next slide. Or is it a fluency problem? So that is one area, or this is one area which we really need to look into. Or is it about comprehension? So don't fall for the comprehension items fallacy. You cannot simply teach students how to answer particular question types such as the main idea, vocabulary inferencing, supporting details, and drawing conclusions, among others. And if we take a look at these results, there is an average percentage of questions which are correct from 0 to 100. Literal and inferential, then this figure presents the performance on the ACT reading test by comprehension level. So on this side here, from 11 to 36, these are the ACT reading test score. I'm sure you have tried this among your students before, right? Looking into the literal and inferential comprehension level after they took the test. So this is another figure which shows the main idea, the author's approach, the supporting details on this line, relationships on the broken arrows, meaning of words, these two, and then for the dots, generalizations and conclusions. Although it's not so clear because this is just a scan copy, but it will be explained later on. Here, this is the line represents the uncomplicated, and then the more challenging for this line, and then for this broken lines, the complex. So there are basic skills that teaching which will improve reading comprehension, and we call them enabling skills, which can seem like ends in themselves. But really, the purpose of teaching enabling skills is that they can improve reading comprehension. So we always target the skills of the students because that should be the focus in teaching reading. And we need to pay attention to student performance and developmental level. So if you would say, for example, that your students belong to the non-reading category or non-reading level, if there are non-readers in the class, or if they belong to the frustration level, then we have to see to it that we will be teaching them using the enabling skills, enabling them to develop their skills. Then this is a sample of the NRP reviewed 51 studies of phonemic awareness instruction and 38 studies of phonics instruction. So the reviewed studies were on vocabulary instruction, and it looked at what vocabulary reveals. It also has studies on oral reading fluency instruction, and they don't fail to teach these basic skills, but teach them with a clear purpose. skills instruction. So it should eventually end up with reading for meaning as the payoff. So this should be the payoff class. No? Reading for meaning. And that reading comprehension is not merely listening comprehension, because they are both thinking with the language. Students who are low or who belong to the low category in reading comprehension are often low in listening comprehension also. So it seems like there is a relationship between the two, right? Early listening comprehension is correlated with later reading comprehension. And for English learners, these relations are stronger within English than across languages. Then one reason the correlations are not higher is because the demands of decoding, which is reading, requiring students to think about the text while decoding. Studies do not yet show that improving listening comprehension is an effective intervention for improving reading comprehension. So there are studies that do not yet show, but recently there might be studies that show that improving listening comprehension could be an effective intervention for improving reading comprehension, since listening is considered as a basic skill. Then the next slide shows that kindergarten teachers should focus on listening comprehension. So among you who have tried teaching in the kindergarten level, we should focus on the listening comprehension as a basic skill. Unfortunately, teachers often replace reading with listening lessons because of the difficulty of books. So those who are teaching, for example, in the Department of Education, where it is noted that books are very scarce, then you could go into the listening comprehension. Like you read the text for your students to listen. This gets you through the books, but doesn't teach reading at all. It says students need to read materials that are challenging. So if you really want to build their reading skills, then you have to really let them read. Apart from the idea that it's really important to teach or to develop their listening skills. On the depth of thought matters. While question types don't make much difference, how deeply students think about the ideas in text does matter. Would you agree to this? Close reading is a good idea if the text justifies it. You can also do close reading. And close reading is a kind of apprenticeship into how to think about the ideas in text. So there are many versions of close reading. In all the versions, the meaning is in the text and needs to be acquired through careful and thorough analysis and reanalysis. Texts don't just give up their meaning. This is according to this book on how to read a book. Adler's close reading. Rereading is essential, and each reading has a separate purpose. So of course, we can always challenge our students to read over and over again a selection if they were not able to get the exact ideas or comprehend much, then they can repeat, or they can reread. A first reading should determine what a text says, and a second reading should determine how a text works. So there's a relationship here between the what and the how. And the third reading allows the reader to evaluate the quality and value of the text and to connect the text to other texts. So if we will ask them to read over and over again, this is what to be done during the first, the second, and the third reading. Probably on the fourth, they can do the same for the third. Then in a close reading program, all focus is on the text meaning, minimize background preparation, and then students must do the reading or the interpretation, and the teachers will do the major role as to ask the text-dependent questions. And this is a multi-day commitment to text, and it serves as a purposeful reading. There is a certain purpose, not a practice, but separate journeys. Then what does the text say? First reading, question should help guide students to think about the most important elements of the text. Stories are about significant, meaningful conflicts. Human nature and human motivation are central to the action and the meaning, and questions should also clarify confusions. So this is for what the text say. An example given here is The Big Orange Plot by Daniel Pinkwater. I don't know if you have come across this story. This is a nice story, and you could like raise these questions. Okay. How did the neighbors feel about this plot and why? What did they do about it? How did they think Mr. Plumbin felt about it? And what did they think that? Why rather? Why did they think that? But what did he do? Could be another question that you can raise. And how did the neighbors react and why? So these are the different sorts of questions, class, which you could possibly ask in that particular reading selections. As to the conclusion of the first reading, the questions should be focused on key events and motivations, particularly events that you think might be confusing. Okay. The discussion led by these questions should lead to a good understanding of what the text said, and there should be a good follow-up would be to tell or write summaries or retellings of the story. And how does the text work? This is for the second reading. So for the second reading, questions should help guide the students to think about how the text works and what the author was up to. And stories are written by the people to teach lessons or reveal insights about the human condition in aesthetically pleasing and powerful ways. And awareness of author choices are critical to coming to terms with craft and structure. So what, in the same story, what was he thinking? The conflict here, or the conflict here starts here, but the author doesn't beat you over the head with it. Plumbin has decided something or is about to. So these are more of the questions, and there is a discussion like there is more going on here than is on the page. When is Plumbin transformed? When does he decide to be different? So there are discussions to the different or an explanation to the different questions raised. Why didn't the author reveal this conversation? So given that Plumbin just worked this out for himself, I doubt that he had the certainty to persuade his neighbor. My hunch or my guess is that he just told him his own story and the neighbor identified with it. All right. Conclusion, more on the second reading. I think this was already discussed. Then what does the text mean? The third reading. Questions should help guide students to think about what this text means to them and how it connects to other texts. Stories relate to other stories and to our lives, and evaluations of quality and connecting to other experiences is an essential part of the reading experience. Do you know other stories like this? How were those stories similar and different? Which of these stories did you like best and why? And what did you think about how the author used literary devices and how effective were these? Don't get in the way of the text. This is a current pre-reading ritual. Guided, directed, assisted reading includes background, review, context, previewing, and purpose setting or motivation. So still on pre-reading, this is a rule. The candle has to be worth the game. And let the author do the talking. For rule number 3, give students enough information that they have a reason to read. Yes. And that reading comprehension can be taught explicitly. There is more to comprehension teaching than just building enabling skills. So as we discussed earlier, we should enable their skills, but there is more than that. It is possible to provide instruction that will help our students to think more effectively while they are reading. So like, for example, the NRP reviewed 205 studies that showed that reading comprehension could be taught directly throughout the elementary and secondary grades. And these studies emphasized teaching students how to think effectively during reading, and that strategies should be taught as strategies rather than skills. So not just a skill, but a strategy. Historically, reading instruction has emphasized comprehension skills, and skills are meant to be carried out quickly, easily, and without conscious attention. So it should be normal among them. But strategies are intentional and complex. Maybe you can do in your thesis study regarding reading strategies and skills. How do you separate the two? Okay. So these are examples of skills: cause and effect, classify and categorize, compare and contrast, draw conclusions, fact and opinion, main idea, important details, inferences, sequence, bias and propaganda, problem and solution, identify the theme, literal recall, tone, mood, among others. There are still plenty. Summarizing, questioning, story mapping, monitoring, question answering, graphic organizers, mental imagery, prior knowledge. I'm sure you have tried this for those. Strategies versus skills. These are the strategies on the left side, and on the right are the skills. Intentional strategies and the skills are automatic. Metacognitive strategies, but the skills are overlearning. Then reflective strategies and the skills are immediate. Then complex and multi-step strategies, the skills are simple and single step. Probability of success for the strategies and the skills are certainty of success. Approximation for strategies and accuracy for skills. So there are clear explanations that really matter. All right. So if you talk about, when we talk about skills, I mean a clear explanation, this should really matter, or this should bring about an importance or an essential among our students, because studies show that how well teachers can explain mental processes makes a difference in student progress. Core programs and professional development can give teachers guidance in teaching strategies clearly, and students need explanations of how text works. For example, vocabulary, grammar, cohesion, structure, literary devices, and data presentation devices. And that students need explanations of how strategies work. Students need to learn the what, the when, the how, the why of strategies. And there should be a gradual release of control approaches that are effective, like modeling and explanation, guided practice and explanation, and independent practice. Then for the gradual release of control, I do it. Make your students realize that they can do it, but then we do it for the next line, and you do it. So these three should be combined. Okay, if you as a teacher can do it, then we can do it together as a group, and then students can do it by themselves in turn. So I do it, we do it, we do it together, you do it. There are disciplinary strategies that matter too. Strategies are about taking intentional mental actions to understand a text, and story maps versus character change charts. So this is an example of chemistry note-taking activity. There is substance, properties, processes, interactions, and atomic expression. Whereas in this example, you can see here the history events chart, the text, the who, the what, the where, the when, and the why. So relation for 1, relation for 2, relation for 3, and the main point for 4. This is a character chart, character change chart. What is the main character like at the beginning of the story? And what is the main character like at the end of the story? How has he or she changed? Then the crisis will be placed on this triangle. Given this character change, what do you think the author wanted you to learn? What do you think the author wanted you to learn? So maybe you can ask this type of questions, class, and do this type of activity in your reading classes for a change. Or probably you have tried it already. Summing up, Don't be misled by reading comprehension tests, and that basic skills teaching improves reading comprehension. Reading comprehension is not listening comprehension. The depth of thought matters, and don't get in the way of the text. Reading comprehension can be taught explicitly. Strategies should be taught as strategies rather than skills, and the clear explanations matter. Gradual release of control approaches are effective, and that disciplinary strategies matter too. So these are the things that every teacher should know about reading comprehension, which is taken from Timothy Shanahan of the University of Illinois at Chicago. That's our reference. Thank you so much for listening. There will be a set of activities which will be provided.